Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast. Happy Toasty Thursday. I'm Jay Zawoski with Greg Boyson and Mario Tirabassi. Sarah's running the show for us today, fresh off her trip to Italy. Got back yesterday and you came here?
Yeah, I came back to the heat.
Need the buffer day. Always book the buffer day.
I'm young. It's honestly, it's only an 8-hour difference too. Like it's not that bad.
Thanks for rubbing it in. Only an 8-hour difference. Yeah, hardly any.
How many consecutive hours have you been up then?
I slept a lot last night. I slept in this morning, but I got back at like 7, but it was a 20-hour travel day. And so, but then I went to bed at like 9:30 last night, and then I woke up this morning around like 9:30. Okay. And so I feel fine. I feel
Driving
great.
from Wilmette to Cog Hill and back tomorrow is going to ruin my weekend. And you just flew home from Italy. And you're all bright and cheery.
Yeah.
The
I always
benefits of youth.
Yeah, I always look at the glass half empty or half full?
Half full.
Half full. I always look at it half full. Yeah.
All right, good. You came in, you were glowing. I could tell you had just been on vacation. You had a different energy about you, which we appreciate. Well, we're glad you're here, Sarah. Thanks to everybody else for being here, too. Make sure you smash that like button on our YouTube page. Make sure you like the page and subscribe to the page as well. Same deal on podcast apps. Subscribe, follow, all that stuff, and a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify would go a long, long way. All right, it is finally out. The Athletic has finally published something we can steal for show content again. Thank you, Corey Pronman.
Took you long enough.
Did his prospect pipeline rankings, and they're out, and that includes the top 5, which includes the Blackhawks. So before we get into it, got to let you know the eligibility here for Corey Pronman. He says it's determined by age. A player is eligible if they're 22 years old or younger as of September 15th, 2023. This encompasses almost every prospect selected between the 2019 and 2023 drafts. This is done to include a number of teams' top prospects without aggressively graduating players who have a lot of prime development years ahead of them, even if they're already in the NHL. This does have the effect at times, including star NHL players, while leaving out players who are still in the minors and have a chance to make the league. There's no perfect way to create player eligibility for a prospect ranking. This method has become my preference, Corey's preference, after trying all the other options. So, with that acknowledged,
I can't wait till Connor Bedard's on this list for 4 straight years. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering why the Hawks are number 2 and the Ducks are number 1, it's because they're still considering Trevor Zegras a prospect.
Sure.
Tim Stützle is still considered a prospect.
Yeah.
Is Jack Hughes still consired a prospect? Is he on the? Is that why the Devils?
He's younger than 22.
So yeah, there you go.
Jack Hughes was the top pick in 2019.
Yes, Jack Hughes is still considered a prospect.
Yeah.
In the minds of Corey Pronman. So
Okay, cool.
So that's the gripe with this.
Yeah, I mean, I see what he's doing.
So it should be called, like, instead of prospects, like
label it 20
under 23 and under.
Yeah, label it 22 and under.
Pool or something.
Yeah.
Because prospect is a wrong term to use for a guy like Jack freaking Hughes.
If you've played 2 full NHL seasons, you're not a prospect. You're an NHL player.
I mean, Jack Hughes was a Hart Trophy consideration last year. That's not a prospect anymore.
Yes.
So yes, it's flawed. But then again, all these lists are based on. It's not a finite mathematic solution to these. It's not science. It's a guy that comes up with his own rules and regulations and then base his opinion on his own rules and regulations. So keep that in mind. Like, don't be upset that the Blackhawks are number 2.
If only there was a better way to do this, like some 3-sided way.
Some sort of triangle-shaped thing might be
triangular
Come out with that.
prism of prospects.
Someday someone will invent it.
And Corey's been on the show. We like Corey. He does an amazing job.
It's not
just
against
rename
him.
it under 23 pool.
Or you just say it's this or this many games played.
Yeah.
That eliminates the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, Jack Hughes, Trevor Zegras, they probably have years ahead of them that will be better. You can say the same thing about Adam Boquist. You can say the same thing about a lot of younger players that have not hit their prime yet, but are by no means prospects.
Can we call it the Lafreniere and Kako rule? Because as Corey is explaining it, it's they have important development years ahead of them. Well, yeah, of course. But those guys have played over 200 NHL games.
Yeah, I mean, I think at 200 years or 200 games, you're not a prospect anymore. You
still have development ahead of you.
Yeah, you could still get better.
But Patrick Kane had development ahead of him in 2010.
Yeah, and he was 21 years old.
He's not a prospect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be games played in that age. You get once you play at least if you play a full season's worth of games and you're in the lineup, you're on the team every day, I think you're no longer a prospect. You're a young developing player, not a prospect.
All right, so your top 5: Columbus, New Jersey, Buffalo, the Hawks, and Anaheim. And I think if we were to, just based on looking at these things and looking at the teams and looking at the players in there, if you were to kind of adjust it the way that we have in our minds, the Hawks are number 1. Because he's got Dylan Cousins and Owen Power for the Sabres. Like, these guys have played games.
Is Pat LaFontaine still on that list?
Yes. Brian Campbell still on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, again, it's nitpicking, but it is what it is. So the Hawks on this list are number 2.
Do you have all the teams pulled up?
I got it.
Okay.
I'll look.
Is Kirby Dach on Montreal?
I'm looking right now.
I'll lose my mind.
Yes, he is. He's their fourth guy on that list.
Jesus.
And as
all right, now I'm going to start getting angry
points
at
out,
Corey.
he does say it's pipeline rankings, but still, if you're already there, you're not in the pipeline. You've come out of the pipeline.
If there's water in my tub, it is no longer in the pipeline.
Yeah.
210 NHL games for
It
for
should
Kirby
be
Dach.
the under 23 pool.
Let's
Yeah.
fix this for Corey before we get into it. Is it 82 games? Is it
In a
100 games?
Yeah, I don't.
I would say
put it at 90 for the prospect pyramid. I put it at 90 because that gives you the chance to play a full NHL season, 2 half seasons, like 9. But it's also I put it at 90, or if you get till age 23 to play 90 NHL games, and if you reach 90 NHL games, or you reach age 24, you're no longer a prospect. That's how I do it.
Your method is better. There you go.
I just think a guy who's played 200 NHL games, not even just professional games, NHL games, 200. You're not a prospect.
You're a young player.
Yep.
Yeah, it's or in the pipeline. You're on the actual team.
Yeah.
When you're in the pipeline, you're in the AHL, you're in college, you're in juniors.
Mhm.
When you're in the NHL, you're in the NHL.
Right. Like Lucas Reichel has played, 120, 130 professional games in North America, but he's only played 25 in the NHL. Like, that's still very prospect-y,
Yeah.
even though he's going to get his first full NHL season this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider him a prospect after this season.
No.
If he plays
Right.
the entire year.
Exactly.
Which he should. But,
Anyway.
Anyway, we are nitpicking a bit. But
So here's what we're going to go over the way he has the Hawks ranked. He says key additions: Connor Bedard, Oliver Moore, Adam Guyan, Roman Kanserov, Martin Miziak. A key graduate from the Hawks is Philip Kurashev, no longer on the list.
'Cause
In
he's
2022,
23.
the Hawks were ranked 13th, again up to 2.
Now, this was based off Pronman's
Yeah.
rankings.
Yeah.
Wheeler had him.
Scott
fifth.
Wheeler at midseason last year had them 5th.
Yeah.
Right.
So 2 different rankings.
And he gives the Blackhawks 2023 NHL draft grade an A+.
It's hard to
It's
argue with that.
hard to go wrong when you get Bedard with one of those picks.
All right, so number 1 we know is Connor Bedard. Now he has tiers: skating, puck skills, hockey sense, and analysis. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he calls Bedard a bubble generational player and elite NHL player. That is his bubble. That's number 1.
Fair.
Number 2, I think predictably, Kevin Korchinski, who he calls a top-of-the-lineup player with above NHL average skating, NHL average puck skills, hockey sense, and compete levels. He's got Korchinski at number 2 in the system. He has a long time been a big fan of Lucas Reichel, who he has at number 3. He calls him a bubble top and middle-of-the-lineup player with NHL average skills in all categories. You know, that kind of bugs me, too, because if you're saying he's going to be a top or middle-of-the-lineup player, but all of his skills are average.
Yeah. There's a flaw in that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he says he has above average puck skills. So maybe that gives him the tick.
Oh, yes, he does.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, when I see that of like, you know, when they say like your average NHL player skills, I think of it as like a letter grade. Like, oh, okay, so he's like a C. Well, if you have all C's and a B, you're usually not going to be at the top of the lineup for anything.
You're going to be me at Lewis University.
You're going to be me in high school. Like, you know, like I wasn't the top of anything. So, yeah, I think I'll say this. Read Corey's entire analysis. He's going to break it down a little bit more, probably, and as you said, he at the beginning kind of discusses why his process is his process. But I think, you know, we can. The fact of the matter is, Lucas Reichel, is he the number 3 prospect in their system? Yeah, I would say so. I don't agree with that at all.
Let's go through the top 5, and then we'll kind of see if we agree with it.
One quick question. When he lists these skating, puck skills, blah, 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 that are all NHL average, elite, whatever, is he talking right now, or that's where he sees him topping out?
It feels like right now,
Okay.
based on the analysis parts he
All right.
has.
Well, okay. That makes a lot more sense. Like where they are now, because as young players, they obviously can improve
Right.
in all those categories. So maybe that's where he's
Okay.
seeing his.
If he says right now he's an average NHL player, his future could be this.
Then
Okay.
that makes more sense.
I
Yeah.
gotcha.
Number 4, he's got Oliver Moore, who he calls a bubble top and middle of the lineup player with high-end skating and NHL average in puck skills and hockey sense, and above NHL average compete. Number 5 is Frank Nazar, middle of the lineup player, above NHL average in skating and compete, NHL average in puck skills and hockey sense. So there's your top 5. Any sort of issues there?
Not
No.
particularly, no.
No.
You wouldn't put Moore ahead of Reichel?
No.
You think if you were going to put both of those guys
I
on the trade block?
I think if knowing what we know about them, I think we know way more about Lucas Reichel than we do about Oliver Moore in their skill set and their development. But yeah, I would say, I mean, you're talking the difference between number 3 and number 4. You're really you can really get into splitting hairs, but no, I would, based off of what we know about all these guys now, Lucas Reichel at 3, just cement him in there. I think that's completely fine.
I think Moore has the higher ceiling, but right now, because Reichel's further along in his development and is ready to become a full-time NHL player, that's why he's ahead of Moore.
Yeah.
Moore is probably going to be a better player when it's all said and done, or they might be about the same. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But I think because Reichel is further along and ready to take that step to become a full-time, hopefully very effective NHL player, that's why he's ahead of him.
Yes.
See, I kind of think of it in terms of trade value, right? Like, which of these guys, if you were to put them both on, if Kyle Davidson texts his GM text chain and says these 2 players are available, I feel like Moore would maybe get the bigger return. However, he just fell to 19 in the draft.
Right.
So maybe other GMs aren't as high on Oliver Moore as we are here, and as Kyle Davidson was clearly at the draft.
Well, I'm glad there were 18 GMs that weren't as high on him as Kyle Davidson was.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, no, I think. Yeah, I think you still get a little bit more for Lucas Reichel, and I think it goes back to just we just know a little bit more about him.
Got a comment from Armithalist. Hope I said that right. Or Armithalist? I don't know. He says Lucas Reichel's floor is a lot higher than Oliver Moore's. I think I agree with that. I think the chance that Reichel bottoms out to nothing versus Moore.
Yeah.
Because I think we already have seen that Reichel can be an effective NHL player. We've seen it. We've witnessed it.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened. Like you've said, we don't know with Oliver Moore. And I think a lot of the hype about Oliver Moore is based solely on his speed and skating. And some of the knock on him has been his finish, his ability to finish and actually put the puck in the back of the net. So is he the next Pavel Bure, or is he the next Andreas Athanasiou or Victor Stahlberg, where the skating is wonderful, but the finish is not so wonderful?
Right.
He's not going to be Pavel Bure. I'm comfortable saying that. But I'm just thinking of fast skaters.
That'd be fantastic.
That would be great.
Yeah,
Can you
you're right.
imagine?
I don't see that in his future.
No. But
If we can have somewhere in between Pavel Bure and Victor Stahlberg, that would be pretty good.
Yeah, you have a very competent, good NHL player. Yeah.
The median between those two players would be nice.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that the difference between those players is the gap in what the bottom of their career could be. So, yeah, I think that's a fair reason to have Reichel at 3. Do you guys think more over Nazar is right?
I've always wondered if we overhype Nazar. I don't know the answer, but there's so little that we've seen.
What's really the difference between being 4 or 5?
No, I know. But for the purpose of
I mean,
the rankings debate,
I would probably put Nazar ahead of more, but again, I'm basing it on where they are right now.
Yeah.
Nazar's they're pretty much they're both entering their first full season of NCAA hockey.
Right.
But Nazar's got more experience on the international stage. I don't have a problem with more ahead of him. I think Moore's ceiling is slightly higher. If Oliver Moore exceeds expectations, he's going to be a great player. If Frank Nazar exceeds his expectations, he'll probably be slightly below that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm okay with that. Or if it was the other way around, I'm okay with that too. I mean, they definitely both belong
in the top
5.
Yeah.
Even top 4 maybe. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be upset at that. But, sure, more ahead of Nazar. Let's run with it.
Sure. It's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we're arguing who our top 5 guys are. Does this guy deserve to be here? Does this guy deserve to be? 3 years ago, we couldn't even fill out a top 5 of guys that actually have a shot to make the NHL.
Yep.
It was Lucas Reichel and nobody else.
And no one. All right, there's the top 5. We're going to get to 6 through 10 here next. But first, we're going to tell you about our friends at Ray Auto.
Yes, we are. Are you in the market for a new vehicle? If you are, then we have some great news for you. Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram in Fox Lake have joined the CHGO team. At Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, you'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest inventories and find unforgettable savings. And right now, during the Make the Summer event at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram in Fox Lake, you'll be able to take up to 20% off MSRP on select new 2023 Ram 1500 models. Yeah, but maybe you're thinking the interest rates might be too high right now. That's not the case at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, because now, through August 31st, you'll be able to get limited time 0% financing for 72 months on select new models. So if you're in the market for a new vehicle, then you have to check out the team at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, because they're the only team we recommend. Visit them today on Route 12 in Fox Lake. For more information, visit Ray CDJR, only in Fox Lake, or raycdjr.com today. They've been serving the community since 1963, and we are happy to have them on board.
And with football season right around the corner and baseball season underway, it is time to get fitted out in the best sports gear around from our friends at Foco.com. They've got hoodies, shoes, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. Head out to Wrigley or Guaranteed Rate. Get your Aloha shirts, your straw hats, your polos, your bags, everything you need for a game. And as the weather starts to cool, which we can dream about right now, let's think about that. That sounds amazing. You can get hoodies and slippers and boots and everything you need for that cold weather that's right around the corner here in Chicago. All that at Foco.com. And our set is decorated with a lot of great stuff from our friends at Foco, so thank them for that. Check out Foco.com or click the link in our description below for all non-presale items. Use the promo code CHGO for 10% off. Again, that's Foco.com, promo code CHGO. Number 6 on the list, Corey Pronman's Pipeline Prospect Rankings, is defenseman Wyatt Kaiser. Bit of a surprise for me to see him this size. Calls him a middle-of-the-lineup player, which would be second-pair defenseman in my world. Above NHL skating, below NHL puck skills, average hockey sense, above NHL compete. There's number 6, Wyatt Kaiser, who I think in our short glimpse of him last year was pretty impressive. It almost to me, mirrors the way Alex Vlasic was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or the first couple games, you're like, not so sure. Then as he found his footing, looked kind of impressive and looked like he belonged. So we'll see. I feel like Kaiser's probably going to start in Rockford, but I wouldn't write off his chances of making the team.
Yeah, I think him and Vlasic are two guys that could follow the same path of each other in their development, where Vlasic gets a couple of games right out of college, goes down, plays a year in Rockford, and now he's got a great opportunity to solidify himself in an NHL spot. Maybe we see that happen with Wyatt Kaiser. They're two different players, both in size and style. But I was a little surprised to see Kaiser this high. But I think the way that he how his transition went from college to the NHL, I think in the scouting community, in the prospect analytics community, that opened some eyes of like, wow, like, okay, this was a guy that, was at a top college program for 3 years, and then made the transition to the NHL, was always kind of on the radar, but never one of the top defensemen in the system. And then when he got in front of, NHL eyes and played some games with the Blackhawks, it was like, oh, okay, this is what everyone was saying that he could be right away. So yeah, I think there's a lot of optimism around Kaiser, and he is going to be in that defensive battle in training camp in the preseason to take one of those, probably 2 spots that are unassigned yet to guys looking for an opportunity. So he's going to be in that mix for sure.
Yeah, I think there's no debate that Kevin Korchinski is the top defensive prospect the Blackhawks have. I don't think anybody's going to argue that point. And then you get that next group: Kaiser, Vlasic, Del Mastro, Allen. Throw Phillips in there.
Yep.
I don't know if Kaiser's the best of that bunch. I think he's a little high here, and I really like Wyatt Kaiser. I think he'll probably do the Alex Vlasic treatment unless he forces his way. But I think he's going to get a significant time in Rockford. Again, it's kind of, it's Corey's way of ranking him, and that's what he thinks. So I would put Del Mastro and Allen maybe a little bit ahead of him, but I think out of that group, after Korchinski, Kaiser probably has the highest NHL ceiling. I think the most impressive thing about him is when he was starring in Minnesota high school hockey, he was an offensive-minded defenseman, and then he got to Duluth, and he completely focused on being I'm going to be a defensive defenseman. So he could do both.
Yeah.
He didn't really show the offense a ton in college because he chose not to. I know the difference between high school and college, especially a major program. It's a big jump, but to be able to be like, I can play defensive hockey too and do it at that level, that's what impressed me. So I think it's a pretty bright future for Wyatt Kaiser.
I think your point about his ceiling is good, because if the offensive game comes around and he's solid defensively, you're talking about maybe a Johnny Oduya type, where you can just kind of rely on him to do whatever you need. You can play him on a second power play, but also if there's a big shift, you can shut somebody down too. Yeah. That would be nice, but it's whether or not, and Pronman sort of says, the offense has always been a debate on Kaiser. He's not amazing with the puck, but he showed in college he can move it well enough and isn't devoid of skill. That's nice. Yeah,
I mean, his goal numbers and his point totals weren't, astronomical, but if you go back and watch some of those goals that he did score, a lot of them were pretty nice. I can think of at least 2 where, it was a zone entry, a dangle around a guy, and, finish with a nice shot. So he has that ability in him. And I think having played more of a shutdown role on a top line at a program like Duluth, playing in a national championship game as a freshman and being a minutes eater for 3 seasons is a really good stepping stone right into the NHL. And now he's in that mix. And I think if you look at ceilings, maybe a guy like, obviously a guy like Korchinski has a higher ceiling. Maybe a Demastro has a higher ceiling as a strictly defensive guy. But I think as a player who could be that middle of the lineup, plug him into anywhere you need him on special teams, play some solid 5-on-5 minutes. I think Kaiser has that ability in him.
I like the comp to Oduya. Like if he tops out Johnny Oduya, that's a good comp because I think I'm not saying any of these guys are going to turn into these players, but just think of the types. Like Kevin Korchinski.
Style.
Kevin Korchinski will be in that Duncan Keith mold-ish. And then Kaiser the Oduya.
That would be nice.
I'm not saying he's going to
I
be
know.
Duncan Keith, but he's going to hopefully his style fits that. And then your Del Mastro and Allen are going to hopefully be your Seabrook Jarmelson types that are like the stay-at-home physical guys, maybe can contribute a little bit of offense now and then, but they're not looked upon for that. Kaiser, and with all these young defensemen who are going to be fighting for spots over the next 2-3 seasons, the fact that Luke Richardson and Kevin Dean are going to be their coaches, that gets me a little more optimistic about the group as a whole.
Absolutely. By the way, Oduya career high in points was 29. So, again, not like an offensive defenseman by NHL means, but a guy who can move the puck.
Yeah.
He could take the puck from defensive zone to neutral zone.
Difference between being able to being a puck-moving defenseman and being an offensive defenseman.
Yeah.
Puck-moving defensemen are guys like an Oduya who can work well in transition, can quickly move you from the defensive zone to the offensive zone. An offensive defenseman is Erik Karlsson, a guy who can score a bunch, who can, when you're in the offensive zone, facilitate from the blue line and beyond and be able to rack up points that way.
And when the Hawks were winning cups, they had almost everybody was a puck mover.
Yeah.
And that was kind of essential to being a Hawks defenseman.
Yeah, very few defensemen of the 2010s for the Blackhawks, when the puck got on their stick, everything stopped.
Yeah. I agree with our guy Lebowski5, who says the most overrated thing in hockey is a defenseman that can score goals but sucks at defending. I agree.
Yeah.
I like my defenseman to defend. It's right in the name.
Yeah. You can have one guy who's like, oh, I'm going to create all the offense from the blue line, but you got to pair him with someone who can make up for.
You got to offset it. Yeah,
you got to offset it.
And by the way, I hope to put that on my business card one day. Not devoid of all skill. I
think you're safe to do that.
All right.
I think you've earned that.
I do have one skill, maybe.
Nice. All right, number 7 on the list, Elias Safanov. Played in the KHL last season.
I'm excited about
below NHL average skater, above NHL average puck skills, below NHL average hockey sense, and above NHL average compete. So the question is, will he come here? Will he come to the United States? Which seems like probably not right away, couple years.
Obviously with KHL contracts and how they work, it's going to be a few years for him to play in Russia. But when I saw Corey had Safanov at number 7, I actually got really excited because for like the last two years, a lot of questions of like, oh, who's the most underrated prospect? I always go to Elias Safanov because he's a guy that they don't have. You talk about Moore, Nazar, Reichel, Bedard, guys that can play down the middle, guys that have a high-end skill, high-end skating, all guys that are 6 foot or smaller. Safanov, he doesn't have the high-end skill, but I think he's got a high compete level. I think he's got a two-way game that in the prospect system the Blackhawks don't have down the middle, and he's a big boy. Like I really think it's something that the Blackhawks don't have a lot of in their system. They have it in him, and I know he's playing in Russia, but I do think it's not an if but a when. I think he's, of the Russian prospects they have, he's the one that I feel the most comfortable being like, yeah, he'll come over, no problem.
Yeah,
I think that's in the future.
He really improved last year. If you read our weekly rebuild report, he was one of the guys I focused on a lot, playing for Akbar's Kazan over there in Russia.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. They do play the neutral zone trap there. He's actually served as team captain as a 21-year-old for a portion of the season when Alex Radulov was injured. And, the young players in European leagues, especially Russia, they don't get a lot of playing time, but he kept getting more and more as the season went on. Finished with 19 goals, 37 points in 64 games. Was a big-time contributor for them in their playoff run. He is signed for 2 more seasons. His contract in the KHL goes through the end of the 24-25 season, so the earliest he could be here would be 2025.
Which I think he'd be
that fits
23.
He'll be 24 at that point. He just turned 22.
Okay.
He turned 22 May 30th. So
Okay, so he'd be
24.
Yeah.
And that fits that window.
Sure.
That 2 to 3 year window that Kyle Davidson has kind of made glaringly obvious when he thinks his team's going to be ready to start making some noise, and he could be a nice guy to bring in. If you're looking for a young middle six center with size, you don't have to get one on the free agency market. You bring in your own guy,
which is great when you have some contracts coming due. Then too.
Yeah, he'll be an entry level.
You'd be get him on an entry level contract, not the standard, but you'd probably a 2 year kind of deal, not the 3 year 900,000.
You get that cap relief.
Yeah,
and then he'll be an RFA, so you can get him to So like it's lining up nicely. He's a guy I'm definitely going to be keeping, extra focus on. For this upcoming season.
And potentially getting a guy kind of fully developed at 24, coming over as, a rookie on a rookie deal. Like, I don't know. I'm feeling maybe a little irrationally excited about the prospect of Safanov coming over and hitting his potential, but I don't know. There's something about him that I'm just like, I feel like He's a guy to really keep an eye on.
Those are the sort of things too, like you said, like you just plug them into an already pretty good team. It's like, oh, this too.
Yeah, right.
That's nice. That's a nice addition.
Yeah, it's not like he's going to have to be here and have pressure of like,
right.
Okay, kid, you got to perform. It's just going to be like, okay, you can take your time to slowly gel with your team. And he was part of that 2021 draft class. And I know we like to take swipes at he shall not be named as often as we can, but his last 2 draft classes were pretty good. That 2021 class got some talent in it, and Safanov was a 6th round pick in that draft. A lot of that probably had to do with
being
the
Russia
situation. Yeah. If he was playing in the OHL, he probably would have been a 3rd round pick, maybe 3rd or 4th round pick, because everybody has that unknown factor when you're playing in Russia. That's why he fell to 6th, but could be a real great value pick moving forward.
All right, we mentioned Safanov, who's a big forward. So is the next guy on the list, coming in at number 8, Colton Dach, 6'4", 196. It says below NHL average skating, NHL average puck skills, hockey sense, and compete. And Proman goes on to say Dach's biggest issue is his consistency. When he's on, he looks like a no-doubt NHL player, but Corey says he hasn't always seen that player. Corey says he can be a bottom 6 NHL forward, and if he develops well, he has a chance to be more. This is a guy who I've been impressed with when I've gotten to see him in limited doses. I'm really interested to see how he looks during the preseason, how he looks in Rockford. I feel like if he can stay healthy, which is the knock on all the Ducks apparently, they got something here. It's a big kid with skill, can play center or wing. I don't know. It's kind of when you look at the guys they've drafted and they project up top, with Bedard and with Nazar and Reichel, smallish. So as you get lower on this list, you've got Safanov, you've got Colton Dach, you've got even like, who knows if he'll ever be an NHL player, but Marcel, another big guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They started to address the size thing later in the draft. But Dach's a guy who's a 2nd round pick who looks like potentially could be an NHL player here.
Yeah, and I think to Corey's point of wanting to see the consistency, I think that ties hand in hand with he's just dealt with injuries. So stay healthy, and that consistency can probably follow suit. Yeah. I mean, he's had concussion issues. His World Junior tournament was cut short with a shoulder injury. So, stay healthy. It's one of the hardest things to do. But stay healthy, and I think that consistency will come through. And, yeah, I'm excited to see what he does with Rockford this year. And who knows, maybe by the end of this upcoming season, we see some Colton Dach NHL games.
Knocks on Dach is my favorite Dr. Seuss book, by the way.
It's pretty good.
Thanks for bringing that one up. Yeah. I like it better than Green Eggs and Ham. Colton Dach, I want him to succeed just to kind of get the stigma of the Dach name a little better here in Chicago. And I like it. Like, I think if he gets to the NHL and he becomes that bottom 6 kind of bruising guy, throws some big checks, scores some goals. He's going to be a fan favorite.
Yeah.
Chicago's going to love his personality.
He's going to be a media favorite.
He's got this little bit of swagger and confidence about him. Not arrogance, but just this, Kirby and Colton are polar opposites when it comes to personalities.
Seems like
Kirby is a little more quiet, a little more introverted, where Colton's just like, I'm going to do it. I'm like, this is what I do. He's got that swagger, and you need a little bit of that. And
Sure.
I think the media is he's a good quote already. And I think the fans are going to like him because of what he does on the ice, but then, what he brings off the ice too.
We've talked about it forever, since the inception of this show. You got to have depth. And when you look at those teams that won the Cups for the Hawks, it was Bickle and Brouwer and guys like Andrew Ladd and Boland.
Yep.
They were all in the middle of your lineup,
Yeah.
bottom six because of the forward depth that was here. But not only could they come on the ice and not get you hurt, they could also do some damage of their own. And that's as you start to project out building a team versus building a roster, right? You can kind of see where these pieces are starting to fit.
Yeah.
And you can see the way Kyle Davidson dressed. All right, we just got some smaller speed. Now we need to supplement with some size, some grit, and then hopefully you get enough of both categories and you have a very nice lineup that jives really well together and has nice chemistry and has kind of everything it needs. So like the Dynasty Blackhawks, they can adapt to any kind of game style. They can outskate you, they can outscore you, they can out-hit you,
Yeah.
they can out-defend you, they can out-goaltend you. Whatever the series called for in the 2010s, the Hawks had an answer for it.
Yep.
They could beat the skilled Canucks. They could beat the bruising Ducks. Whatever you throw at the Hawks, they're going to overcome it because of how well that roster was built.
Yeah.
If Colton Dach can hit his ceiling and be what Troy Brouwer was for the 2010 team, I love it.
Sure. Absolutely. All right, number 9 on the list, defenseman Nolan Allen. NHL average skating, below NHL average puck skills, NHL average hockey sense, above NHL average compete and shot. This is your defensive defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
This is your shutdown guy. Kind of scoffed when he was picked in the first round, 32nd. But over time, you've seen the development there, and you can kind of see what he who shall not be named had in mind when he drafted this kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he could have probably been available in the second and maybe even into the third round, but like we praise Kyle Davidson for doing, going and getting his guy. Previous GM seemed like he knew what he wanted and went and got his guy, and it's worked out in the development. So yeah, a good pick at that time that maybe just needed some time to simmer, needed some time to process. Nolan Allen, to me, I know we mentioned before, Allen and Del Mastro kind of like that Hjalmarsson Seabrook mold. Nolan Allen, I think, will fit more of that like Hjalmarsson mold, because I think while and Hjalmarsson was an underrated physical player.
Yeah.
But I think the defensive-minded game, the willingness to kind of give up your body, I think he brings that. He has some pretty good offensive pop too. He's got a good shot, like Corey mentions. But I think as far as Del Mastro goes, I think physically Del Mastro will be able to play a little bit stronger, a little bit heavier than Allen. And I think he's going to be a little bit more of that Seabrook guy, where he'll be a little bit more physical, and that'll be a bigger part of his game. But yeah, Allen, I feel like could be a really nice middle pair defenseman. Maybe put him with Wyatt Kaiser, and allow Kaiser and Allen to kind of be a little bit of a, sneakily skilled pairing. That's going to shut you down.
Yeah, Allen's the type of guy is the guy you pair with that offensive-minded defenseman. So it takes pressure off of that guy that's itching to get out of the defensive zone. Kind of puts him there. So yeah, it's as you mentioned, first round probably a stretch for him. But listen, if he becomes your 5th defenseman for 10 years, then it's a good pick.
Yeah,
Sure.
Because there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that get drafted 32nd in the NHL that in the draft that never
even play.
Yeah, never even get on the ice. So
Yeah. All right, we're going to give you number 10 before we take another little break here. Number 10, Gavin Hayes, 66 overall in 2022. The tier is projected to play NHL games, skating below NHL average, puck skills, hockey sense, compete all NHL average, and the shot above NHL average. Corey Proman points out that Hayes took significant steps forward this season into a top-scoring winger in the OHL, scoring 40 goals and 80 points for Flint. Yes, there are components here of a bottom-six NHL winger. And again, that falls into that Brouwer, Bickle kind of a thing. And I know sometimes, like, Bickle, people kind of go, ugh, about Bickle because the contract became a problem and it cost you Teuvo Teravainen. But think about the player. That's one of the things I hate the most about the salary cap is guys just become what their cap hit is. And if it's an undesirable cap hit, suddenly they're an undesirable player, Seth Jones, right?
People forget that Brian Bickle got that contract because of what he did in that 2013 Cup.
Right.
Yeah, he earned it.
Didn't he?
He was half of the 17 seconds.
Yeah.
Did he lead the team in goals that year for the playoffs? I'll look it up. You guys keep talking.
That sounds right.
I mean, he was a monster in that 2013 season. If they had not given him that contract, people would have been screaming bloody murder.
Yeah.
And yes, it didn't turn out well. And hindsight is 2020 because, you know, we now know the reasons why his play declined as quickly as it did. But he was such a key player for that 2013 run. Had so many big goals.
And don't forget, in 2014,
he was great.
Yeah, so in 2013, he had 17 points in 23 playoff games. Obviously, they win the Cup. The next year, in 19 playoff games, he had 10 points.
Yeah.
2 years in a row of good playoff performances.
Yeah, it wasn't for nothing. That 2013 run.
Claude Giroux is a borderline Hall of Famer for what he did in the postseason.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, that 2013 run for Bickle, 9 goals. The leading goal scorer in the postseason was Patrick Sharp with 10. 4 players scored 9. The other 3 besides Bickle, David Krejci, Patrice Bergeron, and Patrick Kane. Like,
pretty good.
He was a factor, and he was paid as such. So, as far as Gavin Hayes goes, bottom 6 scoring winger. He's a big guy, so he's got some size. And this last season he really jumped from maybe he'll play in the NHL too. He's getting invited to the U.S. Summer Showcase. Has a chance to make the roster for the World Juniors. He's a top line guy that's going to be playing with the Flint Firebirds in the OHL. Scoring 40 in the OHL isn't anything to sneeze at. Like that takes some skill. So I mean I'm excited to see what Gavin Hayes does this next upcoming season. He was one of those players that was, kind of invited to hang around the Ice Hogs at the end of the year. So that was a good experience and a good, confidence boost. He got his entry-level contract as well. So, I think the organization, they have him in their plans. So it'll be exciting to see what he does next year.
We'll finish off the list here in a second, but we're at the golf outing tomorrow, and it's not going to be like today, but it's going to be sunny.
Yes.
It's going to be sunny.
And I'm giving you your double dose of Ray Reeds today. You can take on the sun with gear built to last, meaning the Shady Rays durable frames are not going to melt in these last couple days. I've worn the Shady Rays outside. They have not melted off my face in this ridiculous heat. So check them out. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair we've ever worn. Their durable frames and extremely clear optics are perfect for all your outdoor adventures, like a round of golf at Cog Hill tomorrow morning. That's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection of all eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, drop them in a water hazard. Even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair. No questions asked. You can wear your Shady Rays with confidence long after you purchase. You're also going to feel good. You're going to look great. You're going to feel great because Shady Rays is providing much-needed support to nonprofit partners across the United States through the Shady Rays Impact Program. They're doing everything from building play sets for pediatric cancer patients to providing young adults with MS the outdoor adventure of a lifetime. Shady Rays is making an impact in your community and others like it now and for years to come. If you don't love your Shady Rays, but you're going to, you can always exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's absolutely no risk when you shop at ShadyRays.com. And while you're at ShadyRays.com, you're going to get the best deal of the season. Throw 2 or more pairs of their awesome sunglasses in your shopping cart. Use the promo code CHGO at checkout, and you're going to get 50% off that order. So you can finally try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 satisfied customers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And be a satisfied customer of Lewis University like I am. If it wasn't for Lewis, I wouldn't be here. Well, I'd be alive, but I probably wouldn't have this job. And students just like you are going back to school. They got full-time jobs, they got families, they got full-time sports fandoms, and they're finding out how to make it work by earning a respected degree at Lewis University, 35 miles southwest of Chicago in Romeoville. Fellas, after we hit the links tomorrow, maybe we could take a little detour. I could show you the airport
Sure.
that actually exists. Sean Anderson, you jerk. There is an actual airport and actual airplanes at Lewis.
I'll take your word for it.
It's ranked as one of U.S. News and World Report's top-tier colleges, and Lewis partners with numerous employers for tuition discounts and offers evening, online, and blended formats to help you balance work, family, and education, and their faculty brings real-world experience and instruction to the classroom, which is great for your upcoming career. They offer great career support and academic resources for adult students, and if you're looking to complete your bachelor's or master's degree or enroll in a professional certificate program, Lewis has the right one for you. Lewis offers several career-focused programs that will set you up for success. How about computer science? 8-week sessions can be completed in 1 year with concentrations in software engineering, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, digital forensics, enterprise, and cloud computing. That sounds like if you want a career that's going to be around for the next 40, 50 years, that computer science one sounds good to me. Discover how a degree from Lewis can help you build a better world. Learn more at lewisu.edu/you-can-do-this.
That is until AI gets too smart and takes all of our jobs.
That's right. It's going to happen.
Don't say that.
Thomas in our
Casey
chat.
won't be able to sleep tonight.
Thomas in our chat, Lewis class of 2012, and Edward says they have 2 runways now.
Oh, watch out.
Wow.
Look out.
2 runways. Wow.
2 runways.
2 runways. Wow.
Yeah, and hey,
Bonnie
you know,
Bernstein special.
goes well with colleges, Goose Island. Goose Island
yeah, it
beer.
does.
They
And
are
confirmed.
flying over our heads. They are Chicago's beer since 1988 and the proud beer sponsor of us here at CHGO. And they have an illustrious beer roster with the Goose IPA, the 6-time medal winner at the Great American Beer Fest, which is always in style with a citrus aroma and a bold hop finish. They got the Tropical Beer Hug, the dry hopped Imperial IPA series, which is a 9.9 ABV that is dangerously easy to drink. You got the Full Pocket Pills. It's the everyday beer and what the Goose Island beer brewers are drinking. When the golden sun is outside trying to murder you with its heat, reach for a ice-cold golden can of 312, the wheat ale, the staple of Goose Island's beer. And I know I talk about those 4 all the time, so I want to give some more Goose Island beer some love. How about the Sophie, the Belgian-style Saison, made with orange peel? That sounds refreshing as hell. They got their seasonals, summertime. Klosh is coming to an end soon, which will make way for the Oktoberfest beer. That's coming up. And you got their Barrel House series as well, their Bourbon County Stouts. So check out everything that Goose Island has to offer. And you can do that at their 2 Chicago locations. You can go to their original brew house on Clybourne Avenue in Lincoln Park, or go to the Goose Island Tap Room on Fulton Street in Westtown. Again, that's the Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer.
All right. Now, we're not going to go through the rest of the list like we did the top 10, but we can give you a bit of a recap, and then I want to comment on some of the guys that didn't make it and fall under the could play category. So number 11, Ryan Green. Number 12, Ethan Del Mastro. 13 is Sam Rimzel. 14 is Isaac Phillips. 15, Martin Miziak. 16, Adam Guyon. 17, Roman Kancerov. And now here's the category that says has a chance to play. And 2 of these got my attention. He doesn't have Drew Camesso and the Hawks' top 17 prospects.
Yep.
He's got him down as has a chance to play. Camesso is an intelligent, athletic goaltender with a strong track record of success at various levels. He's an average-sized goalie, though, whose pure toolkit isn't high-end, so I wonder if there's a place in the NHL for him or if he's just a very good NHL goalie.
AHL goalie.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
AHL goalie, right.
We have to see him play some professional games. But, man, USA Hockey took every opportunity they could to play him in the World Championships, in the Olympics, in the World Juniors, without ever playing a professional game. And I know the Olympics, it was because he wasn't a professional is why he could play. But to be one of the top 3, top 4 goaltenders in the USA program for the World Juniors, the Olympics, for the World Championships, top end goaltender for Boston for 3 years. I think there's something there. I think even though he lacks the elite athleticism, or he lacks the desirable size, quote unquote, every report that I've seen and games that I've seen, the way he plays, the style that he plays, how compact and succinct he is in his movements, reminds me a lot of this guy on our set, Corey Crawford. Like, he wasn't the flashy super athlete, but he made every save he needed to, and he did it without having to be out of position. If Camesso can do that, I think he's going to be an NHL goalie with a solid career. So, I don't know. Maybe we're thinking too highly of him just because he's a Blackhawks prospect. But I think there's something there for him.
You just, like you said, though, you just look at the resume.
Yeah.
And he's passed every test he's been given.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. You'd like him to be 2 or 3 inches taller. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. If every goalie
How many times have you said, like, boy, if that goalie was 3 inches taller, he would have stopped that puck?
Right, yeah. I think goaltenders that are smaller, the positioning is what becomes important, because they don't have that extra reach to stick out their pad or whatever. So that's what his game is predicated on, being in the right position to make the right saves that he needs to. So I was surprised that Camesso was not ranked higher, but let's see him play some professional games this year in Rockford.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Next on the could make it list is, and I'm going to call Corey and talk to him, Samuel Savoie. He says, Savoie is fun to watch because he plays like his hair is on fire. He's an elite skater who brings a ton of speed, energy, and physicality to his shifts. He's also a small winger who lacks hockey sense, so I'm unsure if the feet are good enough to get him into the league.
He just described Andrew Shaw.
Yes. But it's funny he says elite skater who brings a ton of speed, but his feet aren't good enough to get him in the league. Now, so people know, speed does not actually equate to footwork. Footwork and speed are two different things.
Right.
Yeah.
And being able to be an efficient skater versus a fast skater are two totally different things.
Do they call it a five-directional skater or four-directional skater?
When I spent a little time scouting, I sat next to Jose Carbonneau, who was a former first-round pick of the Montreal Canadiens, who's now a scout for ISS, who's one of the biggest independent scouting services. And we started talking about things, and he would sit there and tell me what he was looking for. And the best thing about skating, he broke it down for me like this. He says, skating isn't about speed. It's about how many strides and how much energy is exerted to get to your fastest speed. Mm-hmm. If it takes you 8 strides to get to full speed, you're out of gas. I don't care how fast you are. You're useless at that point. Mm-hmm. But if you could get to a good speed in 4 strides and you still have that energy to maintain it, that's more effective than being a fast guy that's now out of gas.
Right.
So that's how he always described it to me. It was like, watch the feet. How much energy is exerted to get to your top speed? That's what I think they mean about footwork. You could be fast, but it may take you from the red line to the blue line to get to top speed, and by that point, you're just a really fast guy trailing the play.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The other one on this list that surprised me, Alex Vlasic.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Vlasic is a huge defenseman who skates quite well for a big man and has played real minutes in the AHL. His offensive sense with the puck is a real question, though, in terms of whether he can move pucks in the NHL.
I don't see Vlasic and Kaiser being... I don't see 13, 14 guys between those two. I don't.
Yeah.
So I think Vlasic should be evaluated a little bit higher than he is here, where he's basically like an honorable mention or whatever. I think his skating for his size is good. He has the size. He has the physical capabilities within his game. When we talked with Anders Sorensen in Rockford, when Vlasic was there in the postseason, he talked about how he wanted him to, work more on his offensive game and be able to, become more well-rounded. His defensive game seems to be pretty solid, but when he has the puck, take a little bit of more of a risk, be a little bit more creative with it. So I think if he continues to work on that, he's going to have an opportunity, just like Wyatt Kaiser, this preseason and training camp to be one of those guys that takes an NHL job. I think he's in that running. If he gets an NHL job out of camp and Kaiser's in Rockford, I mean, I think that would be kind of the proof of where this ranking, where this difference is between the two guys.
Yeah, and his criticism is offensive sense in terms of whether he can move pucks in the NHL. Well, that's why it was he had such great success towards the end of that 2 year when he was with Seth Jones.
Yeah.
Who's very good at moving the puck.
Yeah.
So
again, building a roster, not a team.
Exactly. Like not all 6 of your defensemen don't have to be great puck moving defensemen. But if you have a guy that struggles in that department, but you can pair him and they play well with a guy who excels in that department, that's why it's a defensive pairing.
We've seen him. At no point was I like, wow, he really can't move the puck.
Yeah.
He's not Duncan Keith. But it's not like he's out there fumbling, and he's not Nikita Zadorov throwing hand grenades at every opponent, at every teammate he's got.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It's weird.
Hey.
Sometimes I think that these lists, just speaking generally now, I think there's some favoritism played.
Well, yeah.
I don't know. I think sometimes it is fashionable to crap on the Hawks, and people don't want to make too much of them, or because then they're going to get accused of whatever. But
yeah, sure.
Yeah, somebody said it earlier in the chat. Everybody hates Chicago. We just got to deal with it.
Yeah.
I like it. I like being the I think it was Jason said it earlier. I've been saying it since the draft lottery night. I love being the villain.
Sure.
Bring me all your hate.
Let's embrace it a little bit.
Bring me all your hate, and I will drink a giant chalice of it at the Stanley Cup parade in 4 years.
There you go. Absolutely right. Oh, by the way, speaking of villains, I forgot to clarify my answer.
Oh, yeah, your
earlier.
Darth Vader answer.
From Mailbag Monday, we were asked what our favorite villain was. I had to change mine from Darth Vader to Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards. That guy was the worst. Okay. And we have a super chat from Thomas. If it's not retired, who among the prospects could earn their way to wearing number 10? My pick is Oliver Moore.
Solid.
Sure. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm not a big number guy, except for 28 that should be retired.
Yeah.
Maybe 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think 10 probably gets in the Ring of Honor or whatever.
It's time for one of those. Yeah.
Those kinds of things can be like players can be in the Ring of Honor, but I don't think that retires their jersey.
No, I mean, but 10 has a significance here. With
He's
Sharp
not the best
and
10 in Hawks history, by the way.
Tony Amonte wore
He's
10.
third best 10 in Hawks history.
Patrick
Dennis
Sharp?
Hall was 10.
Okay.
Yeah, people.
Tony
forget about
Amonte
that.
was 10.
Yeah,
I put Sharp over Amani.
I put Sharp over Amani.
Yeah. He won 3 Stanley Cups here.
Yes.
I mean,
Patrick Sharp didn't miss
I
the
love
net
Tony.
by, net
I
by
love
10
Tony Amani
feet.
too, but Patrick Sharp, bigger impact.
Tony
than he
Amani
did.
scored 40 goals basically on his own.
Because he had to.
Sure.
Sharp could have too, but he didn't have to.
Okay. This sounds like a really fun next July topic.
Patrick Sharp didn't miss the net by 80 feet dozens of
He
times
scored
this season
40
either.
goals!
He could have had 60 if he hit the net half the time.
God. Get out of here.
Who's having a better retirement?
If you put Tony Amonte on the Dynasty Blackhawks, trust me, he'd be fine.
Sure he would. He'd be Patrick Sharp.
Yes. 41, 44, 43,
yeah.
35. Come
I
on.
think
This is
you're
all on
right.
garbage-ass Hawks teams.
If Tony Amani was on the Dynasty Hawks, he'd be Patrick Sharp.
I think he's got a point.
No.
He wouldn't have been the best player on those Dynasty Hawk teams.
Dennis
'Cause he
Hall
wouldn't have had to
and
been.
Patrick Sharp, sure. I will hear that argument, but I think Sharp's tenure, his play style, his stats, and his accomplishments put him above Amonte.
Sharp had 939 games. It jumped away. Way to go, hockey reference. 287 goals. Tony Amane, 1,174 games, 416 goals. On some bad
career.
hockey teams.
For
All right.
career.
Amani was better. All right, let's wrap it up. We're back tomorrow. Somehow. We're gonna be at the
we'll
golf
have a
outing.
show tomorrow for sure.
There will be a show on tomorrow.
Between 9 and 10, we're going to come back, do a show, and then get back to Cog
They're
Hill.
delaying the golf outing for our show.
I'm just going to leave my clothes here.
We're going to be live from the fourth hole. I mean, if we can do an emergency podcast from Elizabethtown, Kentucky's gas station,
Damn
Yeah.
right.
we can do it from Cog Hill or right here.
All right. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow at 2 on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.